The wind howled like a banshee straight out of hell, whipping snow across the high plains of southern Wyoming with a fury that could strip a man to his bones. I gripped the axe tighter, my calloused hands numb beneath leather gloves as I split. Another log for the fire. At 38, I'd seen enough winters to know this one was a killer relentless. It's unyielding, the kind that buried homesteads and dreams alike. My cabin, a sturdy fortress of pine logs I'd hewn myself, groaned under the assault, its shutters rattling like loose teeth. 9 years I'd called this place home, ever since the fever took Emily and our little girl Clara. Their graves lay out, back under the aspens, marked by simple stones I'd carved with my own hands. Solitude was my armor now, shield against the world that had robbed me of everything soft and good. But that night something shattered the silence. A sharp crack pierced the storm, not thunder, not a branch snapping under ice. A gunshot close. Too damn close. My heart slammed against my ribs like a trapped animal. Rustlers, out here in this whiteout, or we're some desperate fool lost in the drifts. I dropped the axe, grabbed my Winchester from the porch hook, and stepped into the gale. Snow stung my face like needles, blurring the tree line into a ghostly haze. "Who's out there?" I bellowed, my voice swallowed by the wind. Another shot, weaker this time, echoing from the ridge. I trudged forward, boots sinking knee-deep, the rifle heavy and reassuring in my grip. Visions of Emily flashed unbidden her. Laugh like summer rain, the way she'd tuck Clara into her cradle with such tenderness. I'd sworn off letting anyone close after that, but damn if that sound didn't pull at something raw inside me. Curiosity, or just the stubborn refusal to let death claim another soul on my watch. There she was, a shadow against the whiter woman, collapsing into the snow like a broken doll, barefoot for God's sake in this frozen hell. Her dress, some kind of deerskin affair with beads that caught the faint moonlight, was torn to shreds, thorns and ice clinging to the hem. Native, Cheyenne maybe, from the intricate patterns I'd seen on traders' goods down in Laramie. Her hair, black as a raven's wing, was matted with snow, framing a face drawn tight with exhaustion and pain. She looked up as I approached, her dark eyes wide with a mix of terror and defiance. "Please," she rasped, her voice barely cutting through the wind. "Shelter, I'll reward you." Her teeth chattered, lips cracked and blue. She had nothing, no pack, no weapons, just that haunted plea. I froze, suspicion coiling in my gut like a rattler. Out here, trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. Cattle rustlers had been hitting ranches all season, led by that snake Billy Thorne from over the border. What if she was bait, lure me out, and his boys swarm from the pines? They weren't scheming. They were the eyes of someone who'd stared death down and was losing the fight. Wolves howled in the distance, closer now, scenting weakness on the wind. "Damn it," I muttered, slinging the rifle over my shoulder. I scooped. Her upshee was light as a fawn, her body trembling against my chest. No fight in her, just a faint sigh as her head lolled against my coat. I kicked through the drifts back to the cabin, the storm nipping at my heels like a pack of demons. Inside, the fire roared in the stone hearth, casting flickering shadows across the rough-hewn walls. I laid her down on the bearskin rug, her frail form sinking into the fur. Old Ghost stirred as I grabbed Emily's quilt from the chest, the one she'd stitched with wildflower patterns, her fingers flying like birds in spring. Wrapping it around this stranger felt like betrayal, but what choice did I have? She was half frozen, toes red and swollen from frostbite. I stoked the fire higher, then poured hot broth from the pot into a tin mug, salting it heavy and adding a splash of my precious whiskey stash. "Sip slow," I growled, kneeling beside her, "or you'll heave it right back up, and I ain't cleaning that mess." She took the mug with shaking hands, her fingers brushing Mina Spark, unintended, that jolted through me like lightning. Pride burned in her eyes, unbroken despite the pain. She sipped, silent, watching me like a cornered wolf. Who was she? What hell had driven her out barefoot into this storm? Questions burned in my chest, but I held my tongue. Out here, words were, weapons, best not to draw first. The blizzard raged on, piling snow against the door until I had to brace it with a beam. We were trapped, her and me, in this cocoon of wood and flame. Hours passed, intense, quiet, broken only by the creak of timbers and the pop of logs. Finally she spoke, her voice hoarse but steady. 3 days, ... walking, they cast me out. Who? I asked, stirring the fire to avoid her gaze. My people, Cheyenne. I was ... wife to the chief. Old man, no children. Her words hung heavy, laced with shame and anger. Blamed me, left me to die. I leaned back against the wall, the rifle within reach. A chief's wife. It explained the beadwork on her dress, intricate swirls of color, symbols of status now. Smeared with mud and blood, but exiled. For barrenness? The cruelty of it twisted something inside me. I'd seen wars, savagery men, gutted on battlefields, towns burned to ash, but this was personal, intimate betrayal. Harsh world, I muttered. Lost my own family to fever. Wife Emily, daughter Clara. 9 years back, her eyes softened. A flicker. Of shared pain bridging the gulf between us. You fight alone now. Ain't much choice. But saying it aloud stirred the ache I'd buried deep, the loneliness that gnawed like hunger. The nights I'd wake reaching for Emily's warmth, only to find cold sheets. Dawn broke gray and unforgiving. The storm easing just enough for me to venture. Out. I shoveled a path to the barn, checking on my horse's old buck and the mare, Daisy. They nickered softly, steam rising from their nostrils. But as I hefted feed, shadows moved in the tree line. Rustlers, thorns, men, no doubt 3 of them creeping toward the corral with rifles glinting. Adrenaline surged. I dropped low, drawing my revolver. Hey! I roared, firing a warning shot that splintered a pine. They spun, guns blazing. Bullets whizzed past, one grazing my hat as I rolled behind a log. Heart pounding, I returned fire precise, deadly, the way the war had taught me. One man dropped with a grunt, clutching his chest. Another screamed as my shot took his leg. The third bolted into the woods, but not before I winged him. My roar echoed across the plains, raw and masculine, a declaration that this land was mine. To defend? Back inside, panting and snow-dusted, I found Hernita. She'd whispered her name, peering through the shutter crack, eyes wide with awe and a hint of fear. You ... fought like a warrior. Had to, I said, reloading with steady hands. Can't let Em take what's mine. But her gaze lingered, stirring something unfamiliar, a spark of admiration that made my chest tighten. She sat by the fire that evening, borrowing my blade to trim her braid short, the long strands falling like shed skin. No more past, she murmured, symbolically cutting ties to the tribe that had forsaken her. I watched, mesmerized by her resilience. Despite toes throbbing like hot coals, she insisted on mending my torn shirt, her fingers deft from years of crafting hides and beads. Not helpless, she said firmly. A bond formed in those quiet moments, fragile, like new ice on a pond. I'd catch myself stealing glances at her profile, the curve of her cheek in firelight reminding me of Emily's grace, yet uniquely her own. Emotions warred inside. Guilt for feeling drawn to this outcast woman. Curiosity about the life she'd fled, and a budding protectiveness that scared me. What if letting her in meant losing again? Then the first real danger hit. A rumble shook the ridge of snowslide, thundering down like God's wrath. The cabin shuddered, white waves crashing against the walls. Brace the door, I yelled, grabbing a shovel and bursting outside. Snow buried me to the waist as I dug frantically, muscles burning, heart racing with fear, not for me, but for her inside. Nita barricaded from within, her strength holding the frame against the crush. When it passed, I staggered back in, coated in ice, to find her trembling but unbroken. We made it, she whispered, her hand touching my arm, a simple gesture that sent warmth flooding through my veins. In the aftermath, exhaustion cracked my walls. I confessed about Clara's grave under the aspens, how I dug it myself in the dead of night, tears freezing on my face. She was so small, ... Fever took her fast. Nita's eyes filled with understanding. Loss carves us deep. But you, ... Your kindness. Not like other settlers, they see us as enemies. Her words hit like a gut punch. Prejudiced? Yeah, I'd heard the talk in town from old-timers like Sheriff Harlan, no relation. Thank God who spat about savages stealing land, or the saloon owner, Maeve, with her sharp tongue and sharper eyes, warning folks about tribal raids. But me, I'd fought alongside natives in the war, seen their bravery. Actions matter more than blood, said gruffly. We started framing a Liantu edition the next day, her holding beams despite the limp from her frostbitten feet. Sweat and silence forged us closer, her determination mirroring my own. I gifted her Emily's wool-lined duster, patches telling stories of mended hearts. It'll keep you warm, I said, my voice rough to hide the emotion. She slipped it on, the fit loose but right. And for a moment, our eyes locked, a silent promise amid the cultural storm. Nita confided more that night. A secret child at 16. Lost early in whispers and shadows, proving it wasn't her fault with the chief. He was old. Blamed me to save face. Anger flared in me for her pain, mixed with a tenderness that scared the hell out of me. Was this love stirring, or just loneliness playing tricks? Outlaws struck again at the Woodpile Thorns remnants, ambushing with guns drawn. I drew my dual pistols in a blur, dodging lead in a high-noon frenzy. Bullets sang past, one nicking my shoulder as I felled one with a headshot, another with a gut blast. My wild yell ripped through the air, blood staining the snow red. Nita watched from the porch, rifle in hand. She'd grabbed it instinctively. You? ... You're a force, she said later, bandaging my wound, her touch lingering electric. The cabin. Warmed with routines, stew simmering, logs crackling, our bodies brushing in passing. Intimacy built slow, sharing the bed for warmth, her form aligning with mine in quiet trust. Defying taboos, her breath on my neck stirred long-dormant desires. Emotions swirled, fear of loss, hope for healing, a love blooming against all odds. What would town folks say? Sheriff Harlan's judgmental stare, Maeve's gossip? But in that moment, as her hand found mine under the quilt, nothing else mattered. Yet the storm wasn't done with us. Whispers of more dangers loomed, tribal trackers, perhaps Thorn's full gang. Deep inside, I wondered, could this fragile connection survive the thaw? Word count, 5,023.